Video games have undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping the way majority of this world function. What started off being built solely for the purpose of entertainment at leisure would eventually evolve to further technical depths, being used by teachers, pilots in training, medical practitioners learning pathology, and even military personnel preparing their troops for stressful situations. With that being said, today you will be the judge on whether said theme is applicable to this horrific case presented before you. September 2017. 65-year-old Diana Jones would miss her usual appointment with a client in southern Vancouver, Canada. As this behavior wasn't normal, a co-worker would later visit her residence in the late afternoon. When she arrived, she was immediately greeted to a horrific discovery. The police was then called to the scene. Upon entry, a blood-soaked kitchen would first greet the officers by surprise. Lead Detective Sergeant Leah Terpsma would go on to say it seemed the killer was desperately seeking attention, as the crime scene was extremely gruesome with no attempts to hide any evidence. 64-year-old Diana Jones and her husband, 68-year-old Richard Jones, was found dead inside their own house. An autopsy would reveal Diana suffered severe blunt trauma initially, before she courageously fought her attacker. She would eventually be overpowered, being then dragged into the kitchen where she then had her throat cut. The autopsy on Richard would reveal he walked into the kitchen minutes after Diana had her throat cut and was immediately tackled to the ground and stabbed constantly, to what medical experts stated almost 100 times. Police didn't have a suspect in mind, nor an image at the time, but did have 3 pieces of evidence that was fortunately left at the crime scene: a hat, a pair of gloves, and a hatchet. Surprisingly, the hatchet still had its serial number on the handle and would later be tracked to a local tire shop, being the only place that sells that particular type of hatchet. It was then the Vancouver Homicide Unit found a potential suspect. The police visibly saw who bought the hatchet, but couldn't fully identify the man solely through surveillance footage. A stakeout would eventually commence. Police knew if the shop and the crime scene was fairly close, then the suspect must live close. Police would monitor every movement in the area, essentially forming a box around the perimeter of the 2 locations. Patiently waiting, the next following month, the exact suspect was finally seen in public, entering a bank in Montreal. Detectives would quickly inquire about this mysterious man's details after he left. His information was handed over discreetly. The man in the surveillance footage was identified to be Rocky Rambo Wei, a 25-year-old college student living with his parents. Detectives eventually followed Rocky home, thus learning exactly where he resides. Meanwhile, on the forensic side of the investigation, male DNA was later found under Diana's fingernails, but the profile would come back inconclusive. Detectives knew they had to get a sample of Rocky's DNA to see if it was a match. But how? Later that month, Rocky would eventually leave the house again, this time to pick up some groceries. Detectives quickly thought of a clever ruse in an attempt to retrieve any type of DNA they can possibly find. When Rocky would arrive to the grocery store, a young lady with a cast on her arm was desperately struggling to open a soda bottle. Rocky fell for the bait. He unknowingly gave his skin cells and his fingerprints when helping the young lady open a drink. The DNA was sent in on emergency notice and the profile would come back an exact match found under Diana's fingernails. He was issued for arrest and taken into custody.
Hey there. How are you?
Good.
I'm Sergeant Leah Terpsma. It's good to meet you. How are you today? I guess you've had better days.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Well, you're Rocky, are you? What should I call you? Is that the name you like?
Rocky.
Yeah, okay, I'll call you that. Call me Leah, of course. I've come in to talk to you about what's going on because I'm sure you're wondering what's happening. And there's a lot happening, of course, in an investigation like this. Pretty often there's a lot of people that we need to talk to, and we need to clarify their involvement, if any, and move through some of these things. Are you having any problems understanding me?
If the vocabulary is difficult, I may not understand, but
Yeah.
mostly yes.
You seem able to function well. Yeah, make sure you let me know, Rocky, if there's anything you need for your comfort today, like the bathroom or something to eat, or how's your health? Do you need medication at all, or no? You're good. Good.
The start of this interrogation, the investigator will make Rocky as comfortable as possible, going as far as getting him a sandwich, snacks, and something to drink. Though this is not necessary, the investigator will solely do so in an attempt to get Rocky to openly conversate. What truly makes this interrogation fascinating is the reciprocated responses and coordinated kinesics.
So I'm going to get some sandwiches going. So do you have any understanding of why you're here today?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your understanding of the reason you're here today?
They said I'm under arrest for 2 counts of murder.
Yeah, do you know anything about that?
The name of it.
Do you know those people? No, you don't know them. Okay, good.
Guilty suspects will often act oblivious to the blatant accusations before them. Rocky, however, acknowledges them and subtly addresses it with the information provided by the police. Had he not been given additional information as to why he is under investigation, his answer to that question most likely would have changed to, "No, I don't know why I'm here," or "You haven't told me why I'm here."
So then, yeah, the reason that you're here, Rocky, is that, you're one of many people that we've talked to, and there's been times when we've seen you in the neighborhood, so we knew that you lived nearby, and so that's one of the reasons why we're talking to you here, among a few other things as well. But it's helpful to me to learn that you didn't know those people. Here they are here. Do you recognize those folks?
I have nothing to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have nothing to say.
It's safe to say Rocky has spoken to counsel and was instructed not to elaborate his alibi. Although a suspect may be disobliging, an investigator can and will use anything possible to get the subject to incriminate themselves.
Okay. All right. So, with regard to these people, are they familiar or neighborly with you?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. So obviously this brings up something emotional for you, Rocky. You seem
I don't have nothing to say.
okay. Maybe if you did know those people, then it might explain some of the the video that we have in the neighborhood and stuff that that you're there. Or maybe your friends are theirs. I don't know. Maybe you're upset because your friends are no longer with us. I don't know. But it's my duty to make sure that I give you an opportunity to talk about that if you want to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, just about these people, like I'm unclear. Like I would like to clear that up. If you know them, then great. I would like to hear it.
I have nothing to say.
Okay. So from that, I'm kind of assuming that you don't know them. No. Okay.
At this point of the interrogation, the investigator does not have any luck getting the suspect to admit their relation to the victim. So, she will now switch her approach, going from directly confrontational to building rapport and sympathizing with the suspect.
So what brings you out west? And I thought maybe it was our mountains and lakes.
No.
You're not an outdoorsman?
No.
No, okay. Well, sometimes people come here for that stuff, right? Because we are pretty full of the outdoors life. I don't know, you're making a face, maybe it doesn't for you, but it certainly did for me when I was about your age. There was a lot of pressure. I don't know if it's true for you, but maybe not.
I don't think so.
Hmm? What?
I don't think so.
No, you're fine. Okay, that's good. Well, it's getting that way.
No, I don't think so. It's Mandarin, right?
Oh, is it mostly Mandarin?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's Moorman University. Calgary.
Was it hard?
No. It's too easy.
Too easy. Have you been crying?
For what?
In the last few weeks, have you been crying?
No. Why?
No, over this.
I don't know that guy.
You don't know that guy? Well, that's good to know. What do you wish we knew about you?
What?
Is there anything you wish I knew about you to tell people, the investigators?
Why? Why?
Well, because, I don't know, you're under arrest for murder, so you'd think you'd be saying, listen, no, here's what I want you to know. Like, for instance, I'd be super interested in your, what you were doing on the 26th of September. Because if I can get an alibi, do you know what an alibi is?
Yeah.
Okay, so, if there's an alibi, I can go and,
I don't think I have anything to say.
okay.
Every time the detective tries to empathize, Rocky would disagree, essentially giving the impression that the police doesn't know anything about Rocky, and what they think of him isn't actually true. This goes on for several hours. One can argue this could be Rocky's defense mechanism to refute or misguide the detective's allegations.
I mean, I want you to have an opportunity to address this, because I don't think it's really fair that we only know what's in that house. Okay? Why are you laughing? You don't think fair is important?
Well, at least you're just trying to do your job, right?
No, no. Not really, Rocky. Not really. You're misunderstanding something. You're watching too much TV, Rocky.
No. Just, well, how can I say? What you think is not important, actually. Just, well, you got evidence, something. I don't know.
Why do you think that's what's happened to you before that night isn't important?
I don't know what night you're talking about, actually.
I don't want you to walk out of here today saying, frick, I blew my chance to explain anything or apologize for anything or express some remorse, Rocky. What do you want to say about this, Rocky? What do you want to say? You know, Rocky, I can sit there and I can feel that you are feeling something. I can see that you're emotional. Why aren't you taking this chance to at least express remorse? Maybe today you're not ready to talk about the whole ugly story, but at least say you're sorry. For what? You're an animal.
The detective eventually leaves after losing her patience with the suspect denial. Detective Leah Terpsma would re-enter the room for one last time. Detective knew she wasn't getting anything out of Rocky, so her final chance was to lay her cards all on the table. Maybe with the overwhelming evidence shown to him, the suspect might break down and confess his relation to the crime.
So, a little break. I put some things up
Yeah.
so that you can see clearly. Sometimes I think when I go over the evidence, that in your shoes, like the adrenaline's pumping and maybe you don't get a chance to absorb it all and understand what's happening. So what I've done is, Rocky, I've put things up so that you can understand how the investigation built and led up to things. Some of these things are out of chronological order because we went backwards in time, like I told you, right? Because what happened was, of course, do you want to come and see these things just so it's
I
clear
don't
to you?
want to.
Oh, come on. It'll make it clear to you, Rocky. Intelligent people want to know what's happening to them.
No, I'm not intelligent.
Yes, you are. Like, you keep saying you're not, hon, but you are. I know you are. But anyhow, at the crime scene, this is what we saw outside, was this knife here. This knife ultimately was analyzed. Swabs were taken off of there by our forensic identification people, and later that was it was found that there was male DNA on there. And when we found that, we didn't know who you were yet, but we had this DNA profile. Also, of course, was the hatchet that was outside in the yard. Here it is where it was sitting, and this was probably what caused you the most difficulty right here, because what our investigators did was they looked at this coding here, and this coding told them that this instrument was bought at Canadian Tire. So off they went to Canadian Tire and said, hey, when's the last time you sold this hatchet? And they said, well, right here. Here it is. And not only that, but a hat was sold. That hat right there, a hat similar to that. Anyway, that hat right there was sold, as well as these gloves similar gloves to these ones. And that was on the September the 13th. And of course, we have this person here connected to that purchase. We didn't know who you were yet, but we had this image of you. Here you are making the purchase here. You didn't even wait for your receipt. But anyway, you know, it's a computer system. They keep their own receipt. So we had this image, and what we did was we went into the neighborhood and we just set up surveillance everywhere. And soon enough, one of our very super bright guys said, there he is. And they followed you to the bank where you used your bank card. And then we went into the bank and said, who was that? And they said, that's Rocky Cam. So now we had your name. We knew who you were. And so then we could start to investigate who you were, and we followed you back to your house. So we knew where you lived then. So that's how the investigation got started. And believe me, Rocky, it has just only begun. I mean, we do have overwhelming evidence, but it has only just begun. This backpack here that we see you drop off at Canadian Tire, we later see it in the vicinity of this truck here. I verily believe you drove that truck away from the house, and your image was captured when you locked the truck and the lights came on. There was blood evidence in that truck. I know it looked like you tried to clean it or wipe it or whatever, but there was too much. I'm unclear about exactly where that forensic evidence is going, but the house was full of forensic evidence, so there are certain things that are taking a little longer. So then here we are, we have Rocky Cam, we know who he is. We have evidence at the scene, and we also, you'll notice right here, this is the autopsy report, and here they're taking fingernail clippings from Mrs. Mah-Jones. Okay, so we took those fingernail clippings and they analyzed them, and this is the notes from the undercover operator who took your DNA with the bottle when you opened it for her at the grocery store. These are her notes here. You can read them if you like. So we took that DNA and we compared it to the fingernail clipping DNA, and we get this report here that says, that's you. That water bottle was full of the suspect's DNA, and it matched what was under the fingernails. You can take this down, Rocky, if you want, and look at it really closely for yourself so you can rest your mind that here it is what it is. How was your break? Did you have a chance to think? Did you have a chance to think?
Yeah. I was thinking I'm not gonna get any sleep tonight, am I?
I didn't say that. And by the way, Rocky, it's 7:30.
Detective Leah Terpsma did all she could in trying to get the suspect to confess to the crime. With the overwhelming evidence at hand and hours of psychological scrutiny, Rocky remained silent, denying or refusing any correlation to the crime. But that wouldn't stop the prosecutor from getting their conviction.
The man convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing a Vancouver couple has been sentenced, but it's not exactly what the Crown wanted.
Prosecutors had asked the judge to sentence Rocky Rambo Wei to life with 50 years before being eligible for parole because of the barbaric nature of the murders. Rumina Daya tells us why the judge rejected that argument and a warning some of the details are disturbing. Rumina.
Sophie, first-degree murder carries an automatic life sentence. The difficult decision for the judge here was concurrent or consecutive sentences for the double murder, 25 or 50 years before parole eligibility.
Did you want to comment at all?
No, thank you.
No?
A painful and devastating journey for justice for the victims' families.
Well, that's not the result we were hoping for.
Crown argued the killer should not be allowed to apply for parole for 50 years. The judge's decision, 25.
So it will be 2042 before he can apply for parole. And as Madam Justice Giroux pointed out, there's no guarantee that he will get parole.
But at least say you're sorry.
For what?
For what?
No motive. We still have no understanding why Rocky Rambo Wei Cam, now 27, randomly attacked two innocent strangers. Diana Mah-Jones fought for her life as Cam slit her throat. Her husband, Richard Jones, slashed more than 100 times. Crown tried to convince the judge Cam poses a lethal threat to the public.
Well, it's based on the circumstances of the offense, the nature of the crime, and the lack of an explanation for why Mr. Cam committed these murders.
During the trial, defense argued Cam was consumed by violent video games, and he thought he was in a game when he killed the couple. The theory rejected by Madam Justice Giroux. Cam is a university graduate, no prior criminal history or diagnosed mental health issues. While the nature of the crime is extremely troubling and an indication Mr. Cam may continue to represent a threat to society, said the judge, there were no pre-sentence reports or psychological or psychiatric reports that indicate Mr. Cam is incapable of rehabilitation and therefore will be dangerous in 25 years.
Do you think we're ever going to learn the motive?
I honestly don't know. As I mentioned a moment ago, I'm hoping that during the course of his time in custody, through psychiatric counseling and assessments, that the experts will be able to develop an idea of his motive. But at this point, he chose not to share that with us.
Crown says it needs time to review the judge's ruling before making a decision on whether it will file for an appeal. Sophie?
All right, thanks for that, Ramina.